The night the money disappeared, no alarms rang, no police sirens, no dramatic phone call. Just a quiet email notification glowing on a laptop screen at 2:14 a.m. $10 million. Gone. A man sat alone in a glass-walled penthouse, city lights flickering below like a mocking constellation, the kind of view people dream about when they say, "If I ever make it." He had made it, and yet his hands were shaking as if he were standing out in the cold. The strange part, he didn't lose the money because of greed. He didn't lose it to drugs, gambling, or wild spending. He didn't even lose it to a scam in the way people usually imagine. He lost it because he believed something that sounded right, something comforting, something almost noble. And that belief cost him everything. Years earlier, his life looked very different. He grew up in a modest home where money was discussed in whispers, not plans. His parents worked hard, but the ceiling always felt low. Not poor enough to be desperate, not comfortable enough to feel safe, just stuck. From a young age, he absorbed a simple idea that followed him like a shadow. Good people don't chase money. Money comes if you deserve it. It sounded wise. It sounded moral. It sounded like something a good human being should believe. So he did. He worked hard, stayed honest, and trusted that things would work out if his intentions were pure. And for a while, they did. In his late 20s, he built a company almost by accident. What started as a side project turned into something massive. Investors lined up. Numbers on spreadsheets grew faster than he could emotionally process. His name began appearing in rooms he never imagined entering. By 40, he was wealthy. Not internet wealthy, not flashy wealthy. Real, generational level wealthy. $10 million was just one slice of his financial world. And yet, beneath the tailored suits and polite smiles, that old belief still lived inside him. If I'm a good person, I don't need to worry too much about money. It will take care of itself. That belief shaped every decision he made next. He didn't obsess over contracts. He didn't double-check fine print. He didn't question people who spoke confidently. Why would he? They sounded smart. They sounded ethical. They sounded like him. When financial advisors came along promising set-it-and-forget-it strategies, he felt relief. Finally, someone else could handle the uncomfortable details. Someone else could watch the numbers. He wanted wealth to be quiet, passive, almost invisible. So he trusted. He trusted systems he didn't understand. He trusted people he didn't truly know. He trusted that intelligence plus good intentions was enough. And slowly, almost politely, the cracks formed. The first warning sign was small. A delayed report, a vague answer, a sentence that ended with, "Don't worry." Have you ever noticed how "don't worry" often appears right before something goes very wrong? He noticed the discomfort in his chest but ignored it. Successful people weren't supposed to panic over details. Successful people delegated. So he did. Months passed, then years. Money moved around in ways he couldn't fully explain. Offshore structures, complex instruments, strategies that sounded impressive but felt abstract. Every time doubt surfaced, he pushed it down with that old belief. I'm not driven by greed. I don't need to micromanage. Things work out. That belief made him feel calm. It also made him blind. The collapse didn't happen in one dramatic explosion. It happened like erosion. Tiny decisions, small oversights, moments of silence where questions should have lived. Until one night, the email arrived. An irregularity. A temporary liquidity issue. A phrase that tries to sound harmless while carrying devastation inside it. He refreshed the page. then again, then again. Numbers didn't lie, but they can disappear. $10 million had evaporated through a combination of bad bets, hidden leverage, and people who were far more careful with their own money than with his. When he called, no one answered. When they finally did, the tone had changed. The warmth was gone, the confidence replaced with legal language. In that moment, something deeper than panic hit him. Shame. Not because he lost money, but because he realized how willingly he had given up responsibility. He spent weeks replaying conversations in his mind, the moments where he nodded instead of asking questions, the times he chose comfort over clarity, the way he confused being a good person with being passive. And here's the part most people don't talk about. The money hurt, yes, but what hurt more was the identity collapse. If being ethical and hardworking wasn't enough to protect him, then what did that say about the world? What did that say about him? He withdrew, not physically, but mentally. He still woke up in luxury, still drank expensive coffee, still wore the same watch, but something had cracked. He started reading obsessively, not motivation books, not success stories, but histories of wealth lost and preserved. He noticed a pattern that made his stomach sink. The people who kept their wealth weren't the most moral or the most brilliant. They were the most attentive. They didn't worship money, but they respected it. They didn't chase it blindly, but they watched it closely. They understood that responsibility doesn't disappear just because you've made it. For the first time, he questioned the belief that had guided him his entire life. What if being a good person doesn't mean stepping away from money? What if it means engaging with it more carefully? Let me ask you something. If you had $10 million today, would you know exactly where it is and why? Or would you rather not think about it at all? That question haunted him. He realized his belief wasn't harmless, it was convenient. It allowed him to avoid discomfort while feeling virtuous. Beliefs like that don't announce themselves as dangerous. They arrive wrapped in good intentions, and they cost people fortunes. Over time, he rebuilt. Not the money, that would take years, but his relationship with responsibility. He hired new advisors, but this time, he asked questions until the room felt awkward. He demanded explanations that made sense in plain language. He stopped outsourcing awareness. And something unexpected happened. The anxiety he feared didn't increase, it decreased. Clarity replaced blind trust. Understanding replaced avoidance. He began to see money not as a moral test, but as a tool that requires attention like anything powerful. Fire warms you if you respect it. Ignore it, and it burns your house down. Today, he doesn't talk about the loss publicly. Most people assume he's still untouched, still insulated, still floating above consequences. But privately, he considers that $10 million tuition, the price he paid to unlearn a comforting lie. The lie that says, if you're a good person, you don't need to pay attention. That belief cost him more than money. It almost cost him his sense of agency. And he knows something now that few people learn before it's too late. Wealth doesn't punish evil or reward goodness. It magnifies habits. Attention protects it. Neglect dissolves it. Before you scroll away, think about this. What belief do you hold that feels virtuous, but might actually be protecting your comfort instead of your future? And if you discovered tomorrow that belief had a hidden cost, would you want to know? Because the most expensive mistakes aren't always made out of greed. Sometimes, they're made out of trust.
What I take from this story is simple. I don't think he lost the money because he was careless or greedy. I think he lost it because he believed being a good person meant he didn't have to stay alert. Personally, I think that's one of the most dangerous beliefs there is. Not just with money, but with anything important. That's what this story changed for me. This is my opinion. What do you think? Share your thoughts.